Most people wake up and wonder why life hasn't delivered the rewards they deserve. They look outside themselves for luck, for opportunity, for someone else to make them wealthy. But the truth is far more powerful and far more demanding. Success is not something that knocks at your door. It is something you grow into. It is not about how much money you have today, but about who you are becoming in this very moment. You see, your income will never rise above your self-worth, and your circumstances will never outgrow your character. If you want wealth, you must first become wealthy in identity, in mindset, in habits, and in vision. You cannot borrow confidence, you cannot rent discipline, and you cannot outsource your integrity. True prosperity starts with a transformation invisible to the world, a transformation that reshapes your thoughts, your decisions, and eventually your destiny. Today, I want to take you on a journey to build that inner identity so strong, so magnetic, that success no longer chases you. It has no choice but to follow. Let's begin right here with the foundation of all true success: identity before income. You see, before a man changes his wallet, he must change his vision of himself. You can't earn beyond who you think you are. Your income will always find its way back to the level of your self-worth, just as water returns to its level. I've met men who made fortunes only to lose them because deep down they never believed they deserved what they had. And I've met others who began with nothing, but a strong sense of who they were becoming, and money simply had no choice but to follow them. Most people try to fix their circumstances before fixing their character. They say, if I just had more money, I'd be more confident. But life doesn't work that way. Confidence attracts money. Money rarely attracts confidence. Wealth doesn't make you valuable, your value attracts wealth. As a young man, I once worked as a farmhand earning pennies, but I carried myself like a businessman in training. I read every night, practiced speaking during the day, and dressed as best I could with what I had. I didn't wait for wealth to show up before I started behaving like someone who could handle it. Because if you wait until you're rich to develop discipline, generosity, or integrity, you'll never keep what you earn. The great philosopher Epictetus said, "You become what you give your attention to." That means if you constantly think of scarcity, you train your mind to see lack. But if you train your focus on growth, service, and strength, your actions begin to align with that picture. So, instead of saying, "I'm trying to get better," say, "I'm training to become my best." One word, trying, sounds weak, temporary, and uncertain. The other, training, carries power, direction, and purpose. Words shape identity, and identity shapes destiny. Every morning, look in the mirror and remind yourself not of who you've been, but of who you are becoming. Write it down in vivid detail. How you think, how you walk, how you respond to pressure. Visualize yourself handling success calmly, making wise decisions, helping others, staying humble. Don't just chase the picture of wealth. Become the kind of person who belongs in that picture. Remember, wealth is attracted to discipline, confidence, and clarity, not desperation. Your income will never rise higher than your self-concept. If you see yourself as average, you'll make average decisions and attract average results. But if you elevate your identity, if you begin to carry yourself as someone destined for more, life begins to rearrange itself in your favor. The doors you once thought were locked start to open, not because luck changed, but because you did. So before you go out trying to increase your income, pause and increase your self-image. Become the kind of person that money, opportunity, and influence feel safe around. Build the identity, and the income will follow like a faithful servant. Discipline before dollars, that's the order of wealth. See, money doesn't change who you are. It amplifies what you already are. If you're careless with $1, you'll be reckless with $1 million. If you can't manage your morning, you can't manage a fortune. Money without discipline is like pouring water into a broken vessel. No matter how much flows in, it leaks right out. I've met many who prayed for more income when what they needed was more order. Because structure always precedes success, chaos can't sustain prosperity. When I first started my journey, I was broke, not just financially, but mentally. My desk was messy, my days were unplanned, and my energy was scattered. One day my mentor said to me, "Young man, your income will seldom exceed your level of organization." That hit me hard. He didn't tell me to earn more, he told me to manage better. From that day on, I started small, making my bed, planning my week, setting aside a fixed amount from every paycheck, no matter how small it was. Those simple acts of structure became the foundation of every fortune I later built. A disciplined person treats time as treasure and decisions as investments. You don't let emotions dictate your effort. You decide once, and then you follow through, whether you feel like it or not. People often say, "I'll save when I earn more." But the truth is, if you can't save when you earn little, you won't save when you earn plenty. It's not the amount that matters, it's the habit. A man who masters his habits is already rich because he controls the direction of his destiny. Aristotle once said, "We are what we repeatedly do." Excellence, then, is not an act but a habit. That means discipline isn't something you have, it's something you build. You don't wake up disciplined, you train yourself into it. So set your daily routines small, simple, repeatable actions that lead to stability. Wake up at a set time. Invest the first hour in learning something new. Allocate a portion of your income automatically to savings or investments. And execute one meaningful task before noon. These routines are invisible wealth, the kind that compounds quietly until it shows up loudly. I've watched people chase money their whole lives, but the ones who eventually caught it were the ones who built systems to hold it. That's why I always say create structure before you create streams. A river needs banks, or it becomes a flood. The same goes for money. It needs boundaries to stay useful. Discipline is those boundaries. It's the invisible fence that protects your fortune from your impulses. So before you ask for dollars, ask yourself, have I built the discipline to manage them? Can I control my habits, my schedule, my spending, and my emotions? Because the man who has discipline can build wealth anywhere. But the man who lacks it could stand in a field of gold and still come away empty-handed. Build discipline first, and the dollars will always find their way to you. You can give two men the same opportunity, the same book, the same market, and the same 24 hours in a day. One will build a fortune, and the other will lose his patience. Why? Because success is never just about the tools, it's about the temperament. It's not what happens on the outside that determines your wealth, but what happens inside you. The outer game, the strategies, the businesses, the investments, they all follow the rhythm of the inner game. If your mind is scattered, your results will be scattered. If your spirit is calm, your strategy will be clear. When I first started working, I thought money was all about mechanics, find the right business, the right plan, the right deal. But life taught me something different. I watched men smarter than me, with more connections and more talent, lose everything. Not because they didn't know how to win, but because they hadn't learned how to think. One had the right business, but fear ruled him. Another had great income, but envy clouded his judgment. The truth is, if your emotions are undisciplined, your execution will always be inconsistent. I learned that if you want to win the outer game, you've got to master the one within. That starts with stillness, reflection, journaling, and honest conversation with yourself. Every morning, before the world begins to shout its demands, you take a quiet moment to ask, who am I becoming today? Not, what do I have to do? But, who must I be to deserve what I want? That one question aligns your thoughts with your future. And let me tell you, the mind is like a garden. If you don't plant flowers intentionally, weeds will grow automatically. That's why guarding your environment is not a luxury. It's a necessity. You can't surround yourself with cynics and expect to bloom with confidence. What you watch, what you read, who you listen to, all of it either waters your vision or drains it. Protect that space like a sacred field, because that's where your wealth seeds are planted. And here's another truth I learned along the way. Don't resent wealth, study it. Too many people curse the rich when they should be learning from them. Envy blinds you, curiosity enlightens you. The poor man says, he's lucky. The wise man says, what can I learn from his methods? When I shifted from resentment to curiosity, everything changed. I started asking better questions, and better questions led me to better opportunities. Remember this, your results are only the shadow of your mindset. You'll never earn more than you think you deserve. Never create more than you can believe is possible. So fix the inner game first. Strengthen your beliefs, calm your fears, guard your energy, and feed your thoughts with truth and possibility. Because when the inner world is mastered, the outer world becomes your mirror, and it will reflect abundance, peace, and power right back to you. When I was young and broke, I used to think that money would solve every problem in my life. I thought that if I could just make enough, everything would fall into place, my relationships, my peace of mind, even my confidence. But when I began to meet people of real wealth, I discovered something profound. Money doesn't change who you are. It amplifies it. If you're generous before you get rich, you'll be more generous after. If you're careless before you get rich, money will only make your carelessness more expensive. That realization hit me hard. It meant that wealth wasn't something I could chase. It was something I had to earn by becoming. I had to build character before chasing cash. Because character is what sustains wealth. Money without it is like a house built on sand. I've watched men gain fortunes overnight and lose them just as quickly because they didn't have the inner structure to hold it. They wanted the rewards without the refinement, the fruit without the roots. But life doesn't work that way. Integrity, discipline, patience, these aren't just moral words, they're wealth principles. A man without integrity can make money, yes, but he'll spend half his time looking over his shoulder. A man without discipline may earn a fortune, but he won't keep it because he can't manage his impulses. And a man without patience will rush into every glittering opportunity until he's bankrupt of peace and wisdom. Wealth is like fire. In the right hands, it warms the house. In the wrong hands, it burns it down. I remember a mentor once told me, keep your word like you keep your wallet, guarded and valuable. That advice never left me. If you promise something, even something small, follow through. Because each time you keep a promise, you deposit trust in the bank of your reputation. And reputation compounds faster than money. You can lose money and earn it back, lose trust, and you might never recover it. In business, people don't buy products, they buy faith in the person offering them. That's why reliability pays dividends far greater than any investment. Each day, I ask myself one question. Am I building trust or trading it? Every decision, every conversation, every deal comes back to that. Because trust is the currency that opens doors money can't. When you build a name that stands for honesty, when people know that your word is as good as gold, opportunities will chase you instead of you chasing them. So if you want to be truly rich, start by building character, not for applause, but for alignment with your higher self. Build a foundation of honesty so solid that wealth can rest upon it without shaking it loose. Because money will test you, fame will tempt you, and time will reveal you. But character, if built strong enough, will outlast them all. When I was starting out, I noticed something that completely changed how I saw the world. The people struggling the most were almost always consuming television, gossip, entertainment, distractions. Their money, their time, their energy were constantly being spent but rarely invested. Meanwhile, those who seemed to be winning, the ones who built wealth, respect, and influence were producing. They created value. They built businesses, they wrote books, they taught skills, they solved problems. The difference between poverty and prosperity wasn't luck. It was direction. The poor spend to escape their reality. The rich spend to expand it. The truth is every dollar carries a decision. It whispers, feed your future or feed your distractions. And the moment you start choosing the future, your entire identity begins to shift. I remember the years when I was broke and impatient. I'd earn a few dollars and immediately look for ways to spend it, new clothes, entertainment, something shiny to feel successful for a moment. But that kind of success fades faster than it comes. The rich, however, play a longer game. They understand that satisfaction delayed becomes success multiplied. I learned to ask myself, will this purchase serve me or slow me? Because money, when used correctly, is a tool for freedom. But when misused, it becomes a chain. So instead of buying pleasures, I started buying possibilities. I bought books that taught me new ways of thinking. I bought tickets to seminars where minds sharper than mine shared their wisdom. I bought tools that allowed me to create, not consume. And slowly, something shifted. My weekends turned from wasting time to building dreams. My conversations changed from complaints to creation. See, consumption is comfortable. It gives you the illusion of progress without the effort. But production, that's where transformation begins. When you write a blog, start a small business, or learn a skill that adds value to others, you stop being a passive participant in the economy and start being a contributor. And the marketplace rewards contribution like nothing else. Every product, every service, every breakthrough started with someone deciding to produce instead of consume. So start small. Maybe you build a side hustle. Maybe you share your knowledge online. Maybe you learn to turn your ideas into income. But make sure your money, time, and effort are moving toward creation, not consumption. You don't need $1 million to start. You just need the mindset that says, I'm done paying for distractions. I'm investing in my destiny. I'll tell you this, entertainment gives you a momentary escape, but production gives you a lifetime of freedom. Every hour spent creating something valuable adds to your future. Every hour spent consuming without purpose takes from it. So make a decision today, stop buying moments of pleasure, and start building mountains of purpose. Because when you become a producer, you don't just make money, you make meaning. There's a quiet truth. Most people overlook money doesn't respond to emotion. It responds to intelligence, calm, disciplined, patient intelligence. The marketplace is not moved by your excitement or your fear. It only reacts to your preparation. That's why I often say, money is a terrible master, but an excellent servant. When you control your emotions, money obeys. But when emotions control you, money escapes like water through open fingers. I remember the early years when I'd make a little progress, only to undo it all because I let feelings take over. 1 month of saving, then one emotional purchase. One good investment, followed by panic, selling when the market dipped. Every time I let fear or greed make the call, it cost me dearly. It took me years to realize that the greatest skill in wealth building wasn't financial knowledge. It was emotional control. You can study economics, attend seminars, and read every book on success. But if you can't remain calm under pressure, you'll never hold on to prosperity for long. The emotionally unstable will always sabotage financial progress. They chase what's trending, abandon what's working, and quit when patience is required most. But the rich, the wise, the steady, they've trained themselves to remain composed in chaos. They understand that the market, like life, will test your nerves before it rewards your wisdom. So instead of reacting, they reflect. Before making big decisions, they pause, they think, they let the emotional wave pass. That's what separates impulsive spenders from strategic investors. I began a habit that changed everything. I delayed all major financial decisions by at least 24 hours. No matter how good or bad something looked, I gave it a day. And you'd be amazed how much clarity arrives with time. What once felt urgent often turned out unnecessary. The emotion faded and reason returned. That single discipline saved me from countless mistakes. You must also learn to study your emotional patterns. Ask yourself, why do I spend when I'm stressed? Why do I lose focus when I'm close to success? These answers will reveal where you leak energy and wealth. Because emotional leaks always become financial leaks. Calmness is not weakness, it's wisdom under control. The strong are not those who never feel, they are those who feel deeply yet act wisely. So practice composure like it's a skill, because it is. Train yourself to breathe when others panic, to observe when others react, and to stay the course when others flee. Remember, storms will come in markets, in business, in life. But wealth isn't built by those who avoid the storm. It's built by those who stay steady until the sun returns. The market rewards composure, and so does life. If you can master your emotions, you can master your money. And if you can master your money, you can master your destiny. There's a lesson I've learned that no one teaches in school. True wealth is not measured by the number in your bank account or the size of your car. It's measured by the impact you leave behind. I've seen people chase the glitter of luxury, buying things that make their neighbors envious, only to wake up years later feeling empty and unnoticed. The rich understand a deeper truth. The goal is not to make a fortune, but to live a life that matters. And the only way to do that is to think legacy, not luxury. I remember a friend early in my career who had everything money could buy: a beautiful home, cars, vacations. Yet when he spoke, it was all about himself. Within a decade, much of what he had accumulated vanished, but nothing lasting remained. Contrast that with a mentor of mine who built businesses that employed hundreds, created scholarships for students, and wrote down lessons that families could pass from generation to generation. His wealth wasn't just in dollars, it was in lives improved, minds inspired, and values taught. That is what lasts. Building legacy begins with teaching your children and those around you the principles that create wealth and character, not just passing on money. I've always told my family, I don't just want to leave you an inheritance. I want to leave you the capacity to create your own. That means instilling habits of discipline, generosity, and vision. Money alone will vanish if the next generation doesn't understand how to steward it wisely. The second step is to create assets that operate independently of you. Businesses, systems, or education funds that continue to generate value long after you've stepped back. Wealth that works while you sleep is powerful, but wealth that works for decades, impacting families and communities, is revolutionary. Think of it as planting trees that your grandchildren will enjoy, rather than filling your yard with flowers that bloom for one season. And perhaps the most profound shift is in your thinking. Change your question from, how can I get, to how can I give? Generosity multiplies wealth in ways that selfish accumulation never will. When you serve, teach, and contribute, opportunities arise, networks expand, and doors open that money alone cannot buy. I've seen time and again that the person who focuses on giving first ends up with far more than the person who focuses on taking. So, if you want to be remembered, if you want your wealth to outlive you, begin by asking, what can I create today that will benefit tomorrow? Build for the long term, serve others, and your fortune will be measured not by what you have, but by what you leave behind. Legacy, not luxury, is the path to enduring wealth. I've learned one of the most overlooked truths about wealth. It's not just about what you know, or even how hard you work. It's about who surrounds you. You see, your environment is like fertile soil. Plant seeds in poor soil, and they wither. Plant seeds in rich, nourishing soil, and they grow beyond your expectations. The great Aristotle once said, "Whosoever is delighted in solitude is either a wild beast or a god." I say, choose your company wisely, because the people you spend the most time with will shape your thinking, your habits, and ultimately your financial destiny. Early in my journey, I found myself frustrated. I was learning, reading, and working hard, yet progress felt slow. Then I realized I was spending too much time with people who were comfortable with mediocrity. Their conversations centered on complaints, excuses, and the scarcity of opportunity. I began intentionally seeking mentors and peers who challenged me, people whose ambitions were larger than mine, whose thinking was sharper, whose integrity was unshakable. Almost overnight, my mindset shifted. I was no longer aiming to keep up. I was striving to grow beyond. Building environments that challenge you starts with choosing your inner circle carefully. Spend time with those who inspire, teach, and push you beyond your comfort zone. If you find yourself nodding along in agreement with mediocrity, it's a sign you're in the wrong company. Remember the saying of Socrates, know the self. Surrounding yourself with high achievers forces you to confront your limitations and elevate your capabilities. Their habits, thinking, and energy become part of your own, almost imperceptibly, like water being absorbed by dry soil. Communities play a huge role too. Seek groups where growth is demanded, where learning and contribution are expected, and where accountability is non-negotiable. These are the circles that foster innovation, creativity, and wealth consciousness. Conversely, avoid circles that normalize small thinking, endless comfort, or passive consumption. Comfort may feel safe, but it is the enemy of change. The moment you stop being challenged, your potential atrophies, and wealth remains out of reach. Finally, remember that environment isn't just people. It's also the spaces you inhabit and the information you consume. Fill your surroundings with ideas, books, conversations, and influences that elevate rather than diminish you. Every moment you spend in a high-caliber environment compounds, shaping your identity, your choices, and ultimately, your results. Choose wisely who and what you allow into your world, and you will find that your thinking, your actions, and your wealth identity will rise to match the company you keep. Growth demands a fertile environment. Mediocrity is always convenient, but it costs far more than you imagine. I want you to consider a truth that is often overlooked. Feelings are fleeting, but principles endure. You see, many people live their lives at the mercy of their moods. They buy when excited, sell when fearful, chase trends when inspired, and quit when frustrated. Yet, wealth and lasting success are never born from emotional whims. They are the offspring of steadfast principles. As the philosopher Epictetus once taught, no man is free who is not master of himself. True mastery, especially financial mastery, begins when you act from values rather than impulses. Early in my own journey, I learned this the hard way. I remember taking advice based on excitement alone, investing in opportunities that seemed thrilling, but were not aligned with the principles I knew mattered. The short-term thrill quickly turned into regret. That experience taught me that emotions are terrible masters but excellent servants. When you allow moods to dictate your decisions, you surrender control. But when you live according to principles, honesty, integrity, patience, discipline, you create a compass that guides every financial and life choice, no matter how turbulent the waters become. Building a life guided by principles begins with clarity. Take time to write down your top 5 guiding principles. Perhaps yours are integrity, perseverance, contribution, continuous learning, and gratitude. These principles become the anchor in every storm. Review them daily, not just as reminders, but as a standard by which every decision is measured. When faced with temptation, pause and ask, does this action honor my principles or satisfy a passing impulse? This pause transforms choice from reaction into deliberate action. Principles also cultivate patience, which is the silent architect of wealth. Impulsiveness might deliver a quick thrill, but it rarely builds anything permanent. The wealthy understand that money is a reflection of the value you provide over time. Acting in alignment with enduring principles allows your decisions to compound like interest, creating results that far outlast fleeting feelings. Finally, living by principles over feelings fosters credibility, reliability, and trust, currencies far more powerful than money itself. People, opportunities, and resources are naturally attracted to those who consistently act with integrity. The world may tempt you with shortcuts, quick gains, and emotional highs, but true wealth comes to those who remain anchored, consistent, and principled. Remember this: feelings change with the wind, but principles form the bedrock of your character, decisions, and ultimately, your financial destiny. Let principles lead, and wealth will follow. I want you to imagine for a moment that time is the ultimate currency, far more precious than any dollar you might earn. You can always make more money, but you cannot make more minutes. Every wealthy individual understands this truth intuitively. Time is not to be spent, it is to be invested. The way you invest your minutes, hours, and days ultimately determines the trajectory of your life, more than the income you earn or the assets you acquire. I learned this lesson early in my life when I was working long hours without a plan. I was busy, yet I was not productive in any meaningful way. Then it hit me, being busy is not the same as being effective. The truly wealthy measure every moment by its potential return. They ask themselves, what will this hour produce? What investment am I making in my future by using it this way? Benjamin Franklin said long ago, lost time is never found again. That quote has guided every decision I've made about my schedule, and I can tell you from experience, it changes everything. To manage time like the wealthy manage money, start with your priorities. Don't prioritize your schedule, schedule your priorities. Make a list of the most impactful activities, the tasks that move your life forward, grow your skills, or increase your earning potential. Then allocate your time accordingly. Everything else is secondary. You will be amazed how much clarity this brings when you stop trying to do everything and instead focus on what truly matters. Next, eliminate waste. Look at your day through the lens of the 80-20 principle. 20% of activities produce 80% of your results. That means a large portion of what consumes your time is producing little to nothing in return. Remove those distractions. Whether it's excessive social media, unproductive meetings, or mindless entertainment, each minute saved is a deposit into your future. Treat your day like a bank account. Every task, every conversation, every decision is either an investment or an expenditure. Ask yourself daily, what return did I earn today? Finally, understand that consistency is the compounding force of time. Just as saving a small amount of money daily grows into significant wealth, investing your minutes consistently in meaningful, high-value activities creates exponential returns over a lifetime. The wealthy understand that a disciplined day repeated becomes a life of results, opportunity, and freedom. So treat your time as your most precious asset. Schedule it, guard it, invest it wisely, and watch how life begins to yield dividends far beyond what money alone could ever provide.